And put today's day and date. I think we were doing a redrafting of our trial balance. Now, again, a very simple thing. Redrafting or trial balance. Now, here we just have to, put the accounts in the correct place. Okay. Now, what you have to remember is we have got 5 category of accounts. We all know that. According to the modern classification, C stands for capital, L for liabilities, E for expenses, A for assets, and R for revenue. And we know the basic nature of capital, liabilities, and revenue is credit, and the basic nature of expenses and assets is debit. Okay, so accordingly, we'll keep on putting it in our trial balance. So we have the first one, question number 9. Come to question number 9, please. Page number 14.26. Yes, Anushka, would you try it?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you try question number 9?
Ma'am, I'm not sure for that.
That is why I wrote all the category of accounts, Anushka, over here. So you have to identify which category, and accordingly we'll put, like, let's say building. So what is building? Which category? Building is capital, liability, expenses, assets, or revenue?
Sorry, asset.
Yes,
Asset?
assets. So assets will have a debit balance. I've written that also. So that will be put on the debit side of the trial balance. Okay, so that is how we redraft a trial balance, or we draft a trial balance. So in trial balance, we've got 2 columns. You need to be regular, more regular, Anushka. Okay, since you have missed quite a bit of portion. So here we are going to put the heads of accounts. We'll put the heads of accounts. So you can just put name of the account and the debit balances and the credit balances, right? So building, we are going to put, Anushka, on the debit side because it is an asset. So we'll put the amount as 3 lakh. Then machinery. Keep on telling me, Anushka.
Machinery is also an asset.
Machinery is an asset. So again, on the debit side, we're going to put this balance, 85,000, correct. Next one, return outwards. What do you mean by return outwards?
I'm not sure.
You have given the test of first 3 chapters, return outwards. Just the name you have to tell me, the basic terms. What is return outwards? We'll talk about the balance later on. First, tell me what is return outwards. Okay, Akriti, what is return outwards?
And the purchase return is return outward.
Yes, purchase return is return outward. Okay. Anushka, now can you tell me purchase return will have what kind of an balance?
Liability?
Purchase return, see, purchases are debit. So purchase return would be credit. Okay, purchase return would be credit. So we'll put it on the credit side. Then number 4, bad debts. Yes, Anushka.
Liability.
Bad debts, what are bad debts? Okay, whether it is liability or asset or anything else, we'll see that later. But what are bad debts? I'm just asking that.
When somebody does not return your money back.
Exactly. So that is a loss or an expense for us, right?
Yeah.
When somebody does not return our money, so that is a loss or expense for us, right? And expenses have which balance? See on the screen, debit balance. So we'll put it on the debit side, right? Okay, so that ways you have to reach to the answer, not directly.
Okay.
Okay, fifth one is cash. Cash, Anushka,
Capital.
is an asset. Sixth. Okay. Continue from here. Aditya, next 4 accounts you have to tell me.
Discount received, I guess, is revenue. Or
Yes, so it'll have a credit balance. Fine.
bank overdraft. I forgot what that was.
Bank overdraft will be
I forgot what bank overdraft meant.
bank overdraft is basically negative balance of your bank account. So
So it should
bank
be
account is an asset. Bank overdraft becomes liability. How much you have to pay to the banker now? So bank overdraft would be a credit balance. Okay, this account is very important, but your bank overdraft. Okay, please everybody make sure that you know bank overdraft. So bank overdraft is basically a liability, and liabilities have a credit balance, right? Aditya, next one,
Yes.
Aditya.
Creditors
Creditors.
would be liability.
So it'll have a credit balance. Keep on putting the figures, Bacho. 2,50,000. Ninth
And
one is purchases.
it would be asset.
It would be
Assets.
not asset. It is an expense. Okay, Bacho, please make sure that you know these 5 categories of accounts. Otherwise, journal entries to pass होने का सवाल ही नहीं, Aditya. You should be able to distinguish between asset and purchases. Purchases is the term which we use when we purchase the raw material or the goods in which we deal. Okay, Aditya. When we purchase assets, we don't call it purchases, we call it an asset. If we purchase machinery, I'll call it machinery account, not purchases account. But when I purchase goods, if I'm into apparel business, if I'm purchasing dresses, that would be purchases. Is the distinction clear, Aditya, between purchases and assets?
Okay, yeah, ma'am.
Okay, now this purchases is different from your English wala purchase. Okay, purchases over here when we are dealing with the main line, the raw material or the main thing in which I'm dealing. I use the purchases term for that. If I purchase assets, if I purchase furniture, I purchase car, I purchase the machinery, I call that by that name of that asset, machinery or building or furniture or car. I don't call it purchases. Purchases I'll call only when I'm, say I'm into apparel business, so I'm purchasing dresses or I'm purchasing raw material as cloth or thread or buttons or laces. That would be my purchases. If I'm into stationery business, when I purchase stationery, I'll call it as purchases. If I'm into any other business and purchasing stationery, I'll call it stationery, right? It'll be in my expense. So purchases will have a debit balance because it is an asset. It is not an asset, but it is an expense. Okay, all the both have debit balances, right, Aditya? Debit balances dono ka hai, asset ka ho chahe expense ka ho. But then we have to put it on the, we have to, identify it correctly. Then the next one is capital. Okay, next one, Aditya, capital. What do we do with that?
It's credit.
Credit, of course, 3,68,000. And then the furniture. Yes,
Uh,
Aditya, continue.
Asset.
Asset 26,000 on the debit side. Okay, then I'm done with the space, so I'll move on to the next sheet. So then here I'm drawing, I'll continue the format over here. Okay, next one is sales. Okay, somebody else continue. Yes, Ashmit, sales account. Have you totaled it and it is matching both the sides? Okay. Sales account. Ashmit, quickly. No, you don't have to type, Ashmit. What? Your mic is not working. Please get it repaired. Puneet, is your mic working? Get it repaired. Vidita?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am,
Yes.
sales will be credit as it is an revenue.
Very good. This is the way you have to answer. Which balance and for what reason? Okay. Yes, next
Ma'am,
debtors.
Debtors are asset. So in debit side,
Very good.
interest received, ma'am, it is our income. So it will be. Just a second.
Interest
Ma'am,
received
it
as
will
a
be
revenue हो गया.
credit.
It is
Credit.
revenue, so on the credit side, okay? And now you can make the total at C. So you can see that some of the balances they had put wrong, like furniture, they have put it under credit balance, which is a mistake, or debtors under credit balance is a mistake. And similarly, on the debit balances, they had put some items wrong. Okay, and then once we've corrected the trial balance, what we get is the total, you're getting 5,20,000. 12,29,000 only. Okay, so the total remaining, I told you, trial balance matching is still not final proof that everything is in place. There may still be mistakes and the trial balance is matching. Okay, it just shows us the arithmetical accuracy that, okay, both sides are mathematically, they're equal, right? Okay. Then, question number 10, moving to question number 10 quickly. Okay, so Parnika, please read the question.
10th question, capital will be in credit.
Redraft correctly the trial balance given below. So we'll make it in the same way, okay? The way they have given in the question, so that you will be able to make out that, okay, we are putting it in the correct order. So we'll make it this way only. I told you trial balance car, you can make it like this, or you can make it like what we had been doing, heads and then, you know, or maybe debit balances and the credit balances, like an account form, you can show it. So here we are putting all the, on the left hand side, I'm putting all the debit balances, just like they have done. Debit balances. And on the right hand side, we are putting all the credit balances. So capital should be where, Saparnika?
Ma'am, in credit balance.
Very good. So capital would come into the credit balance. Fine. You can put the amount. Yes. Next one. Bad debts recovered.
Bad debts recovered will be in debit side.
No, it'll be on the credit side. Bad debt recovered. Okay. What is bad debt recovered account, Saparnika?
It's account.
It is a revenue account, you know. When we expect, you know, we had written off the bad debts when the debtor didn't pay. So we had already taken it as our loss. And now if that, you know, if that person is paying us, so that is a pure gain for us. And therefore, bad debt recovered is a new revenue account which we open. Okay, so it will be on the credit side. Creditors,
Okay, ma'am. Creditors will be in credit balance.
yeah. So again, we'll have to change the side. Return outwards. What is return outwards?
Purchase return.
Purchase returns. So purchases are debited and purchase returns are credited. So return outwards, we'll put it over here. Return outwards, please remember, is purchase return. Bank overdraft, Saparnika?
Bank overdraft will also be in credit side.
Yes, bank overdraft. Just I told you, bank overdraft is a liability and it has a credit balance. So see all the balances they have put wrong. Rent. Yes, rent. What do we
Rent
do with the
will
rent?
be in debit side, ma'am.
Rent would be in the debit side because we don't know whether it is rent paid or received. So if we don't know, we'll keep it as rent paid only. Okay, fine. Salaries.
Salaries will also be in debit side.
Yeah, salary is an expense. The salaries which we're paying to our employees. Trade expenses.
Also on the debit side.
Trade expenses are, of course, by the name only, you can see it is expenses. So they'll be on the debit side only. Cash in hand.
Debit side.
Yes, it is an asset.
Opening stock will be debit side.
Opening stock is on the debit side. It is an asset.
And purchases will also be in the debit side.
Debit side. Why?
Because it's our income.
It is an expense. Okay. Okay. Next one. Let's move on to Navya.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we are on the bank overdraft.
No, we are on debtors.
Debtors. So, ma'am, debtors will be debit side because it's an asset. Bank will also be debit side. Discount allowed will also be debit side.
It is bank deposits. Okay, it's bank deposits. Yeah, not bank account. Bank ka we'll have either bank account or either we'll have bank overdraft. Okay, so bank account can be either positive or negative. So if it is positive, it is an asset bank account. And if it is negative, it is bank overdraft on the liability side. So if we are having bank overdraft on the liability side, simultaneously, we cannot have bank account on the asset side. Bank deposits are the, short-term deposits, which are, payable on demand. So these are highly liquid deposits. As soon as I ask the banker to pay, they'll pay it to me. Right? But bank account, bank balance and bank deposits are different.
Yes, ma'am. Drawings will be debit side.
Discount allowed, okay, discount allowed, you already said, would be on the debit side because it is an expense,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Yes,
Returns.
everybody has taken it down. Just a moment, Navya.
Yes, ma'am.
You're going a bit fast, right? So now, I'm drawing it again. We have done till discount allowed. And now moving on to drawings. Yes, Navya.
Ma'am, drawings will also be debit side.
Very
because
good.
Drawings to cash, we pass that journal entry. So,
Wait. I drew the format wrong. So I'll put drawings on the debit side. Okay, next.
returns
Return.
invoice will also be on the debit side.
Return inwards is bacho. Basically, return inwards is our sales return. So sales are credited and sales returns are debited. So your return inward would be on the debit side. Okay, return inwards is basically another name for sales return. Yes.
Sales will be on the credit side because it's
Yes.
the revenue. Miscellaneous payables will be on the debit side because it's an expense. And grant receive will be on the credit side because it's an income for us.
Wait. Miscellaneous payables is another name for outstanding expenses. Okay. Miscellaneous payables is another name for outstanding expenses, and outstanding expenses now are a liability, and therefore they will be on the credit side. Okay, please make a note, but over here. Miscellaneous. See, there is difference between expenses and outstanding expenses. Had it been expense, we would have put it on the debit side. But if it is expense payable, that means it is expense due or expense outstanding, it would be put on the credit side. Okay. So expenses payable or expenses due or expense, any of the terms might be used. Payables, expenses due, payables, outstanding expenses or expenses due. If these three terms are used, then it will become a credit balance. So here it is miscellaneous payables. Okay. And otherwise also, if you take it as the payables, then it will be a credit balance, assuming it to be creditors. Okay, Navya. So if you take them as creditors or you take them as expenses payables, in any case, it will be a credit balance. Okay. Then grant received. Grant received would be, of course, your receipt. So it will be your credit balance. Okay, grant received. Yeah. Grant received is like if you're running an NGO or some kind of charitable institution, then government gives the grant. Okay, so those are the grants received. Or sometimes you're into such a kind of a business where government would give you some grants or donations. So those receipts are your, on the revenue side, we show it. See, when we talk about non-profit organizations, which are like your clubs, sports clubs and all, so how do they run? They run by the grants they receive or the charities or the donations which they are receiving or the fee which they are receiving. So all these are the sources of revenue for those kind of NGOs or your NPOs, right? So that is what we mean by grant received. So basically it is a receipt. Receipt will be put on the revenue side, the credit side, right? So now you can just check the balances and see. 460, but then we have reshuffled the accounts from here to here, from debit to credit and from credit to debit, which were not correct. Okay, moving on to question number 11. Okay, Anvesha,
Yes, ma'am.
Prepare the correct trial balance from the following trial balance in which there are certain mistakes. So we'll put it in the same formats which they are having. The head of the accounts and then you've done this one also. Hmm? So we'll put the head of the accounts and the debit and the credit figures. Yes. Now here we have adjusted purchases. Adjusted purchases, we are having, of course, purchases, adjusted purchases is an expense and will be put on the debit side. Now, one thing which you have to remember is whenever we have adjusted purchases instead of purchases, in that case, your opening stock, okay, please remember if adjusted purchases, and write this note, last time also we had written, maybe you can write it one more time, that if adjusted purchases, if this note is important because question ऐसा ही आएगा, कुछ तो point आएगा उसमें. They won't give you a simple trial balance like this. Okay. So if adjusted purchases is shown in the trial balance, then opening stock will not be shown. Rather, closing stock will be shown on the debit side. So usually we have purchases and then opening stock is shown on the debit side and closing stock is shown under the trial balance. Okay. The usual practice is purchases is shown as debit in the trial balance. Okay. Opening stock is shown as debit in the trial balance and closing stock is shown under the trial balance. But if adjusted purchases is there in the trial balance, of course, it will be on the debit side. In that case, opening stock will not be shown. Opening stock will nahi show karenge. Closing stock will be shown and on the debit side. Right? Clear?
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, can you explain exactly what adjusted purchases means?
Adjusted purchases is your opening stock plus purchases minus closing stock.
Okay, ma'am. Understood.
Yes. Is given, then also we won't include it. See, this adjusted purchases and the concept of COGS, cost of goods sold. We are, one is cost of goods sold. So, you can write two formulas probably. One is your adjusted purchases, write two formulas because in this, they have not given this question, but it may be there in your exams. Adjusted purchases is equals to opening stock plus net purchases. Basically, whenever I'm saying purchases, I'm talking about net purchases minus closing stock. Now, what is net purchases? So another formula we'll write. So this is number one. Number one ka A part mein we'll write net purchases is equals to your cash purchase plus credit purchase minus purchase return. Cash purchase and credit purchase gives us something known as total purchases. Okay. And minus purchase return will give us net purchase. And when we talk about purchases, final value, that is of course net purchases. Adjusted purchases is this. And then there is something known as cost of goods sold, which is COGS. Cost of goods sold. Now this is same as your adjusted purchases, opening stock plus net purchases minus closing stock plus direct expenses. So one thing more is added plus direct expenses. Now see, Ananya, why I'm telling you this is, if suppose COGS is given to you बच्चों in the trial balance, अगर COGS debit कर रखा trial balance में, Then you won't show the opening stock, and you won't show the purchases, and you won't show the direct expenses also, like your wages and factory expenses and all expenses relating to the factory, because you have already included that in COGS. So similarly, Ananya, when we are showing adjusted purchases in the trial balance, we have already taken into consideration the opening stock. Okay. And that is why we are not putting opening stock in our this trial balance. Is the logic clear? What is adjusted purchases, and then and why do we not show the opening stock then in the trial balance if we have already taken? Because ये दोनों ही include हो गए ना, purchases के साथ ही opening stock include हो गया, तो हमने
Yes.
उसको नहीं show करना, right? And of course, net purchases they're not going to show separately because it has already been included over here. So we show only adjusted purchase. When we are showing COGS, then we won't even show the direct expenses. Only the closing stock will be shown and COGS will be shown. So earlier they used to have one question of COGS also. Now they've removed it because, you know, till this stage, we don't learn the concept of COGS. So this part has been removed recently. Otherwise, till last year or last to last year, the COGS question was there. I remember. Anyways, okay. So now we have adjusted purchases. We have done. Okay. Yes, Anvesha was doing the question, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Please continue.
Ma'am, closing stock will be debit.
Closing stock will be shown on the debit side. Yes. 40,000.
Debtors will be debit again.
Debtors will be debited again because they are assets. Very good.
And creditors will be credited.
Because they are liability. So creditors was 30,000. Write the amounts carefully, bachcho. Use a ruler.
Ma'am, fixed assets and expenses both will be debited.
Fixed assets and expenses would be debited. And we have removed opening stock. And our opening stock ko nahi show karenge because we have shown the adjusted purchase.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
opening stock we won't be showing. So the fixed assets would be, what is the amount? 50,000. We'll put on the debit side. And expenses also, Anvesha says, would be debited. So 20,000 also will bring them over here. Fine. Sales.
Sales will be credited and capital will also be credited.
Okay, okay. Sales and capital both would be credited. So sales and capital both are being credited. 90,000. Okay, that's it. And then the total. Yes. So Priti, what did you get from the credit side? 290 and 320. And the debit side? So this time the total only has changed, right? So quite a bit of mistakes were there. I hope you don't increase the mistakes, huh? So be careful about the accounts. Anushka, increase nahi karni hai, sari eliminate karni hai mistakes. Okay. So basically you have to remember this basic rule, clear one. Hai capital, liabilities and revenues. That is all our incomes, right, Anushka? These all have credit balances, basic credit nature. And expenses
ma'am.
and assets have a debit nature. But then you have to know now that what is all there in the assets, what is all there in the expenses. So assets, we've got fixed assets and current assets, your cash, bank, and your prepaid expenses, accrued income. Okay. And your debtors. Short-term investments, short-term loans given. All these are your assets, including your stock. And then fixed assets, intangible assets, okay, your goodwill, patents, copyrights, trademarks. All these are your intangible assets. And then you have other assets like building, machinery, furniture, car, ye sabko pata hai. Okay, and expenses are your purchases, wages, their salaries, administration expenses, selling and distribution expenses, your advertising expenses, auditing fee. There can be so many names. Okay, here assets may be kuch name aapko confuse karenge, like premises. Premises is your building premises. Then you have furniture and fixtures. So sometimes they'll give you only fixtures. So that is an asset. Okay, so some terms, as you keep on doing the questions, you will come across different different names. So as you keep on doing the questions,
Ma'am, can you show the previous slide once?
sure. This one,
No, ma'am, about the question, the 11th question, that slide.
this one, okay. Then
Ma'am,
the
your
last question.
closing stock is 90,000. It's 40,000.
The closing stock. Okay, I've shown it as 40,000 only.
Oh,
There's a little bit of gap here.
oh, sorry.
Okay, I'll write it more clearly. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Moving on to question number 12 now. Question 12. Correct the following trial balance. Okay, who has not tried today? Roneet and Ashmit, their mic is not working. Okay, maybe Priyanka. Yes. First, we'll draw the format. Give 1 minute to everybody to draw the format, the trial balance, correct trial balance. So here we have the two sides of the trial balance. First, draw the format. The debit balance is on the left-hand side, and the credit balance is on the right-hand side. And of course, the heading you have to write. Yes, Priyanka.
Opening stock debited.
Okay, so whenever you have got opening stock, just just have a quick look on the question that whether the adjusted purchases are given or purchases are given. So the second last item is purchases. So then we can put opening stock in our this thing. Opening stock on the debit side, we're going to put. Fine. Next one.
Return output debit.
Return outwards is your purchase return. Okay, so that also is debit. Return outwards is your purchase return. Purchases are debited and purchase returns are credited. No. So why are we putting in the debit side? Return outwards is your purchase return. ही तो हुआ, वो तो credit में आ जाएगा. अच्छा. Purchase return, right?
Salary is debit. Creditors debit. Bank debit. Carriage inwards and expenses will be debited.
Carriage inwards or carriage outwards, both are debited only. Okay, both are expenses only. So here in carriage inwards, outwards, freight inwards, outwards, or cartage inwards, here you don't have to think. Okay, it will always be your debit balance only. The only difference it is direct expense or indirect expense. So as of now, we do not differentiate as far as my trial balance is concerned, whether it is direct expense or indirect expense. I'm putting it on the debit side only. So carriage inwards or outwards, you have to take care when you're talking about return inwards or outwards.
Then receive credit. Revenue. Discount allowed debit. Purchases debit. Other liabilities credit. Debtors debit. Carriage outwards debit.
Are, you're not writing for yourself. That is why you're going so fast. Okay, debtors. ठीक है. Carriage outwards is
Debit. Capital credit. Machinery debit. Returns inwards is debit. Purchasing.
return inwards is sales return. Return inwards is sales return. Okay, bachcho. So please see over here. Return outwards, we have put on the credit. Return inwards, we have put on the debit. But your carriage inwards and carriage outwards, they both are on the debit only. Because that is an expense. This is an expense. This is an expense. But this is your sales return and this is your purchase return.
Insurance claim received credit, revenue.
Mhm.
Trade expenses debit. Sales credit, building debit.
Insurance claim received is credit. Then your trade expenses is debit. Sales is credit.
Building is debit.
Building is an asset, so building is debit. Okay, now fill in the figures and check the answer. Check the total of the debits and the credits. You're getting 7,90,000. Okay, so they say that debit side total is 798,600. And on the credit also it is 798,600. Okay, come to this illustration number 10 on page number 14.20. If you have done it, question number 12, if it is done, please come to this question, illustration 10. Okay, come to illustration 10, bacho, on page number 14.20. In this illustration, they have given. Asked you to give the reason. If not, then you don't have to give. So the accountant of Gurman prepared the following trial balance wrongly. You're required to draw the correct trial balance stating reasons for the change made. Okay, so we have to not only redraft the trial balance, but also giving the reason. Okay, so here you have to mention what is the category of the account. That is the probable reason which you can give, right? And for your, if you see the reasons over here, in your sales return and purchase return, they have, and drawings, they have given the reasoning as always shows the credit balance, always shows the debit balance, or decrease in the cap. That is how you have to show it. Okay, these three accounts. Because I told you that sales is a revenue account and it has got a credit balance, and sales return will always have a debit balance. Similarly, your purchases would always be a debit balance and your purchase return would always have a credit balance. So this is how you can give the reason. Yes. In the trial balance for this thing, we don't have ledger folio they've given. So page of the ledger from where we're getting the balance. That can be mentioned, but not really required. But here in all the corrected format, they're giving ledger folio. So you can put one column for ledger folio. Because see, this account, any account balance will be coming from that page of the trial balance only. Then in the illustration 9, both the stocks are given. See? Opening and the closing stock. So in that case, because we have purchases, we won't be showing the closing stock over here. Okay. Closing stock won't be shown in the trial balance. Along with the opening stock. Then we won't show both the stocks can't be shown together. Okay. But yeah, if your adjusted purchases, which includes opening stock, has been included and closing stock has been deducted from there, in that case, we will show the closing balance in the trial balance. Illustration 8. And please remember, when we talk about this clear wala rule, okay, these you know. But if there is some provision, because we have not done this chapter provision and reserves yet, okay, or if there is something by the name of reserve, please remember these provision and reserve always have a credit balance. Provisions and reserves always have a credit balance. You can make a note because we have, if you see your index, there is one entire chapter dedicated to these two terms, which is provision and reserves. Okay, which chapter is this? Chapter number 18, it must be. Which one is that? 16. Okay, so chapter number 16. So far, we have not done it. But yeah, please remember as of now, for your trial balance, provisions and reserves have credit balance always and shown either on liability side or deducted from respective asset on the asset side. So if they are shown on the asset side, it will be actually deducted from the asset. Like suppose I've got machinery. Now machinery pe there are, two methods of charging depreciation. One is through the depreciation account. Another one is to provision for depreciation account. Okay. So again, when we do depreciation chapter, then we'll talk about these two different methods. So if I'm maintaining depreciation account, my depreciation will be deducted from the machinery and shown on the asset side of the machine. If I'm showing my provision for depreciation account, then I can show it as a deduction from the machinery account on the asset side, or I can show it on the liability side. Okay. So basically, when we have any kind of provisional reserve, as far as trial balance chapter is concerned, please remember they'll always have a credit balance. So if you see illustration 8, you have got two types of provision over here. One is provision for depreciation on machinery, and another one is provision for doubtful debts. So one is provision for depreciation on machinery, another one is PDD, provision for doubtful debt. Both will have a credit balance. Provision is shown on the liability side, not depreciation account. Depreciation account अगर है तो वो तो हम debit side में ही show करेंगे. Provision for depreciation हम liability side में show करेंगे. ठीक है, not the depreciation account. Remaining are the simple questions of your trial balance. Come to page number 14.4. Page number 14.4, where you have been given hints for preparing a trial balance. See hints for preparing a trial balance. Okay, this is important. Those who are not very comfortable preparing the trial balance as of now can go through this. Okay, you will get the gist of everything, right? Anushka, just mark this. Have you found page number 14.4?
Yes, ma'am.
Anushka, hints
Yes,
for
ma'am.
preparing the trial balance. They have given you basically all the this thing, what is there in the trial balance, on what side we are going to put. Like expenses and losses will be debited. वही clear वाला rule ही है वैसे तो. Income and gains will have be credited, credit balances. Liabilities will have credit balances. And you can see over here expenses payable. Right, Navya? On 12th point, expenses payable will be shown on the credit side as credit balance, right?
Yes,
And all
sir.
your intangible assets, point number 11 will be shown on the asset side. And then they've given if the closing stock is given within the trial balance, it means that it has already been adjusted through opening stock and purchases by debiting the closing stock and crediting the purchases account. So in that case, opening stock will not be shown in the trial balance. And this input and output GST had already told you that input will be shown as a debit balance, the output will be shown as a credit balance, right? Whether it is CGST, SGST, or IGST. Okay, one we have central, one is state, and one is integrated. Okay, so this way we have reached the end of this chapter, trial balance. The next which I'm going to start is your GST. You have to start with GST. Okay, so all of you in your schools can confirm if GST, the other books also we have to do first, no? Okay, first we have cash book. Okay, so I'll be starting with the cash book first, and then we'll be moving on to the GST, other books, and then GST. Okay, so in the next class, I'll be starting with the cash book. So GST is coming. Okay, fine. If it is coming in half yearlies, we'll be able to finish that off. Don't worry. Okay, by half yearlies, we'll be able to finish off GST, of course. Now, this cash book is same as your cash account only. More or less, it is same. Okay, just like your cash account and bank account clubbed together. So it is basically a double column cash book which we prepared, which we have in our course. Okay. So that we'll be doing from the next class. So I'll wind up the class today over here. Next class we'll be starting with a new chapter, that is cash book. Right? So till then, please go through your journal chapter. Okay, ledger is not a very typical thing. Trial balance is again very simple. The only thing which you have to hold upon is journal, because that is the base, right? So more of journal we'll do with GST. Okay, and in cash book also we have got journal proper, but yes, journal has to be really strong. And try to do those who have already done, and you can get your books issued from the library, school library. Maybe DK Goyal ke illustrations also you can go through. If you want, I'll share some more questions, maybe of DK Goyal, the illustrations, right, on the book. So I'll wind up the class over here. Thank you, Bachcho. Bye-bye, everyone.